Hello everyone, today we're going to be building some more Jurassic World. I've been building the most requested dinosaurs I've seen in the comments, and today will be no different. The next one has been one of the most requested ones so far. And for this dinosaur we will be going back to Jurassic World Rebirth. And the dinosaur you've all wanted to see is the Spinosaurus. I feel like I say this every time, but this one has to be my favorite build. The shaping and detail on this one came out a lot better than I had hoped. And as always, if you want to see the finished model, stay tuned till the end. I didn't really use a reference for this build except for this toy. I really liked the solid yellow line running down the back. So for this build, I tried to imitate what you see here. Now we begin the build with the torso. This is one of the more smooth and sleeker looking builds I've made for a body so far. You can see the two technicals for the back legs and the two ball joints for the front arms. On the top of it here, you can see these jumper plates where we will add the sail later on. And I use these two joint pieces to attach the head and the tail, which is exactly what I built next. Here you can see the 4 tail segments. My largest dinosaur builds usually include 4 segments instead of 2 or 3. Here's the largest part of the tail. You can see I continued that smooth, sleek design with those angled slope pieces. And then the 2 middle segments here are basically the same build, but one's a little bit smaller. And you can consistently see the jumper tiles on the top of all these used to connect the sail, which you're able to see on this last part of the tail. This is the only part that has the sail built into the rest of it. Now with all of the tail segments reviewed, it's time to connect them all together. The only downside to this tail compared to the rest is there's not a lot of mobility. You can twist them back and forth, but they're not able to bend up, down, left, or right. Now with all of the segments connected, you can see all those jumper tiles line up for where the sail will go. With the tail all complete, we move on to the back legs. If you watch my Indominus Rex video, you'll recognize this design fairly quickly. I pointed it out since I've been using this technique fairly frequently. And once again, it worked out really well since those 1x2 joint pieces make for a good angle. One thing that's different from my other dinosaur builds is this long Technic pin piece. I had to use this to push the leg out farther from the torso, which we can see when we add it all together. And just like the rest of my dinosaur builds, these 2 back legs are the most unstable part, meaning it will need a stand. And now we move on to the 2 feet. Usually this is one of the trickiest parts of my dinosaur builds, but for this one I found a really handy technique that helped me build it a lot quicker. I used these pin angled pieces with studs on them attached to these bricks with holes in the sides. I'm not sure what those pieces are called, but they help to create the perfect angle. And here you can see the 1x1 brick with the hole in the side used to connect it to the base later. And just like my Indominus video yesterday, I included a little claw for the thumb. And with that, these 2 pieces are complete. Now it was time to attach these to the rest of the back leg. For this connection, the only thing holding them together is a clip and bar piece. And you will see as we attach this other one that it's not very stable. There's not really a good way to make a strong connection here. You can see it falls down pretty easily. Despite its stability, I do think these back legs still look pretty good, and it's not a problem we can't solve, since we are attaching it to a base. And now I move on to the 2 front arm pieces. The top of the hands, I used the special piece I found from a Minecraft minecart set. And for this 3rd finger piece, I used an illegal building technique since it's not put in all the way. You can see when I take it off that the piece attached to the clip is just a little bit higher than the plate itself. This means when it's attached to the rest of the arm, it's not going to be fully connected, but it is still a strong connection. For how small these 2 front arms are, I did really like the way the build came out. And of course, we also had to build a second one so we could have 2 arms. And now that those are done, we can start to move on towards the head, first starting with the neck. You can see I continued that angled slope pattern from the torso we saw earlier. I also had to use some angled plate pieces to keep the joint from showing whenever we connect this. And of course I continued the tan underbelly from the rest of the model, and there you can see the ball joint piece where the head will attach. In the back there is the piece that will attach to the bigger joint. With the neck done, now we can move on to the head. As per usual, this part took the longest to come up with. It was a pretty big struggle keeping the overall height of the head pretty low, but also making it have a long snout. I managed to keep a lot of teeth in there too, which I was pretty happy about. And it's built in 2 segments, one with the lower jaw and one with the rest of the head. And when we flip the head over, you can see I use the same technique that I've been using with the rest of my dinosaur heads. It's made with 2 of those bricks that have studs on either side. Taking off some of the plates at the top of the head, you can see the white of the teeth pieces was covered up using tiles and jumper plates. And this other plate piece was lined up and connected only using 1 stud in the middle. This helped to make sure that the top of the eyeballs were covered. And now speaking of the eyeballs, you can see I used the same technique that I have been using, except this time I used yellow instead of red. And here for the bottom jaw, you can see I basically used the exact same technique as I did for the top. It's attached using a couple clip pieces, which is also connected to a ball joint piece that'll go on the neck. And there goes one of the jumper tiles. After I fixed that all up, we connected the head to the neck. It's not a super strong connection, also considering that the head is pretty long, so it is a little top heavy. But with those two connected, I think it looks pretty good. Now we can attach all the pieces to the torso. While I attach these pieces on, I can tell you what sets I got a lot of these parts from. The first was the little brick-built baby T-Rex that they came out with recently. The second was the sorting hat set, which I got a lot of my angled brown pieces from. Here the tail and the head are connected, and you can see the beginning of the sail at the back there. And now as we add the back legs, you can see how those long Technic pin pieces push the leg out from the rest of the body. When adding the legs, I was pretty nervous that it would bump into the studs on those sloped brown pieces, but it actually worked out perfectly. And now with those attached on, we can move on to the front arms. And these pretty easily connected into the ball joint pieces. Usually around this part, a lot of the model is falling apart, but so far it held together. This would not last for long, as you would see later on. But for now, whenever I tried to show you guys how unstable it was, it managed to keep itself standing up for quite a while. Those front hands stayed pretty steady, so it kept it standing up. It all came together pretty well, but you can tell one thing is missing, the large sail on its back. So that's what we'll be starting on now. These small pieces here are not for the large part on the back. These are going to be attachments for the tail. They're pretty simple, and I only used a couple plates and bricks to get them built. Now as we add them on, you can finally see that these jumper tiles are getting used. You can't tell immediately, but here I made a mistake. These two 1x4 segments are supposed to be switched. So at first they don't line up very well, but that will be changed. After I fixed the mistake, you can see I'd throw up a little thumbs up to try to show you guys that it was all good, but the frame was too small to fit it in, so I ended up looking like an idiot. But now that everything else was complete, it was time for my favorite part of this build, the giant sail on the back. You can see it's mainly composed of a lot of tiles and bricks, with 3 bricks with holes at the bottom to attach it to the jumper tiles later. And over here we have a 1x4 tile that's attached to a brick with a stud on the side. You'll see later that this little addition fills in a gap. Now with this sail complete, we can attach it to the rest of the model. I did a pretty terrible job at adjusting the frame so you could see the whole thing getting added, but you'll be able to see it later on. You are able to see the connection being made here, as well as that 1x4 tile filling in the gap on the first segment of the tail there, which very thankfully ended up lining up completely perfect. And now all parts of this dinosaur were added onto the finished model. And I was nearly ready to call this build complete. Here you can see the dinosaur itself, but before I show it off, we're going to build the base. I decided to go with a beach, oceanic theme like you can see in the movie. In particular, the scene where their boat crashes onto the shore and they can see the Spinosaurus on the land. I did have to include some clear pieces here to keep the dinosaur standing up. Just like my last video, I did not show the process of adding it on. As you can see here, it did not go very well the first time. Thankfully, I was able to get the leg in place without the entire model disintegrating this time. And with that, this build is officially done. This is definitely my favorite dinosaur, and I was really happy with how it turned out. I know it's not perfect and completely accurate to the movies in some ways, but I really like the way that sail turned out. It has a very unique design, and I think that yellow on the top really catches your eye. Sadly, I have not acquired the official Lego Spinosaurus yet, but I do have this dinosaur to compare it to. It has what looks like a fin or sail on the back, so it's the closest thing I had. It is good enough to give you a sense of scale. I hope you all enjoyed this video and seeing this finished model as much as I did building it. I thank you all very much for watching. Bye!